Welcome to this explainer, future educators. Today, we're going to take a pretty dense academic topic and turn it into, well, kind of an architectural tour. We're breaking down curriculum development. Why? Because to conquer the let, you really need to grasp that curriculum isn't just about memorizing a bunch of old theories. It is literally the foundation of education itself.
All right, here's our game plan for today's explainer. We'll start by going beyond the subject list, then look at the different phases of curriculum, the foundational philosophies, and the master blueprints. After that, we'll dive into the K-12 framework and wrap up with alignment and success.
Okay, part 1, beyond the subject list, redefining the race course. So we need to completely shatter a misconception that honestly you probably hold from your own school days. Let's think about the root of the word itself, career. It's a Latin word, and it traditionally means to run a course. Basically, it's like a race course a student sprints through to get to graduation. But if you just think of curriculum as a mere list of subjects to pass, your math, science, and English classes, you are falling into a major trap. That narrow view just won't serve you as a professional educator, and it is definitely not going to help you pass your exams. Instead, we need to completely expand that blueprint. The most accurate, useful definition includes literally all experiences, both the planned and the unplanned ones, that shape a learner while they're under the school's influence. Think about it. If a student watches a teacher kindly helping a struggling classmate, they are learning a massively important curriculum lesson right there, even though empathy is nowhere on the official syllabus. Which brings us to part 2, the faces of curriculum, the visible and the invisible.
Now, to understand the huge gap between what policymakers intend and what students actually live through, you really have to understand the drop-off that happens. First, we've got the written or formal curriculum. That's the official stuff, the syllabi, the DepEd frameworks. But then there's the taught or implemented curriculum. That's what teachers actually manage to deliver on a given Tuesday when time or resources are short. And finally, the experienced or received curriculum. This is what the students actually internalize. It's wild, but 2 students sitting right next to each other in the exact same classroom can experience radically different curriculums, just based on their own backgrounds, their motivation, and how the teacher handles those constraints.
But the blueprint goes even deeper into things we don't always see. Philip Jackson nailed this when he talked about the hidden curriculum. He described it as the unintended lessons, the values, norms, and beliefs that are powerful specifically because they're invisible and unacknowledged. Like, let's say a classroom consistently calls on boys way more often than girls. Without ever saying a word, that teaches a silent, overwhelming lesson about power and whose voices actually matter. And that is completely outside the official lesson plan. And then there's the null curriculum. This concept by Elliot Eisner is absolutely fascinating. It's simply what schools choose not to teach. Because, you see, omission is a teacher in itself. By totally leaving out topics, let's say mental health, local history, or personal finance, the school system is actually shaping human beings through exclusion. It quietly teaches students that those topics simply do not matter. All right, moving on to part 3, foundations of curriculum, the philosophical concrete. Now that we've exposed those invisible forces, we need to look at the heavy, concrete foundation that every curriculum is poured onto. Let's break down the core focus of each major educational philosophy. Perennialism, that's all about great books and timeless, universal truths. Essentialism focuses heavily on traditional subjects and structured direct instruction. Then you have progressivism, which tackles real-life problems through learning by doing. Reconstructionism is aiming for social transformation and fixing inequality, and existentialism is entirely centered on personal choice and self-actualization. For your exams, definitely note how progressivism lines up perfectly with modern active learning, while essentialism is your classic traditional academic approach. Next up, part 4, the master blueprint, Tyler versus Taba. So, when it actually comes down to drawing up a curriculum blueprint, 2 absolute titans of education had a massive disagreement on where construction should even start. On one side, we have Ralph Tyler. He favors a top-down, logical, and really linear approach. He starts with the big objectives set by administrators and experts and ends with evaluation. On the flip side, Hilda Taba advocates for a bottom-up, grassroots approach. She believes you have to start with the classroom teachers, diagnosing their specific learners' needs. It's a huge contrast. Tyler is top-down, logic-driven by objectives, and Taba is bottom-up, empathy-driven by knowing exactly what your students are missing. Let's apply this in part 5, the K-12 framework, spiraling upward. Let's take a look at the specific modern house built in the Philippines, the K-12 Basic Education Program. The whole system perfectly illustrates Jerome Bruner's famous spiral curriculum, which is a massive core mechanic here. The idea is you don't just teach a topic once and say goodbye. Nope. In grade 3, you introduce simple fraction concepts. Then in grade 5, you revisit those same fractions but with much greater complexity. By grade 7, boom, you're tackling advanced fractions and linking them directly to algebra. Concepts aren't just repeated, they spiral upwards, getting deeper and more abstract as the kid matures.
And this K-12 framework is huge. It's deeply grounded in constructivism and inquiry-based learning. It's organized super meticulously by content standards, which is the what, performance standards, the how well, and learning competencies, which are those super granular skills. It also utilizes the senior high tracks like academic, TVLs, sports, and arts. But honestly, a foundational pillar of this whole thing is teaching grades K through 3 in their mother tongue. Why? Because the research is completely overwhelming on this. Children learn to read best and build way stronger cognitive foundations in a language they already speak fluently.
Finally, Part 6, Alignment and Success. Does the blueprint work?
For our final structural check, we got to step inside the classroom itself. And this brings us to curriculum alignment. This is the absolute essential consistency between what is intended, what is taught, and what is assessed. Think about it. If you teach a beautiful, engaging lesson on critical thinking, but then you test your students strictly on memorized facts, your curriculum has severe structural damage. It's completely misaligned. Wiggins and McTighe's backward design actually fixes this exact problem by making you plan the assessment before you even plan the instruction. That way, you're always teaching directly toward the evidence of learning you actually want to see.
Now, to maintain that structural integrity, you need to lock these 4 organizing principles right into your memory. First, scope. That's the overall breadth and depth of your content. Second, sequence. That's the chronological or thematic order you teach it in. Third, continuity. This is the vertical repetition of concepts across grade levels over time. And fourth, integration. This is the horizontal connection across different subjects, like linking a history lesson to a literature book. These 4 principles are quite literally the nuts and bolts that hold the entire curriculum together.
Which leaves us with this final, crucial question. When you finally step into your very own classroom, what's going to be the gap between the beautiful blueprint you intend to teach and the hidden curriculum your students actually experience? Just remember, the experienced curriculum is ultimately the only one that truly counts. If you understand these mechanics, bring them with you into the examination room, and design with real intention, you are going to absolutely conquer the LET. Keep analyzing, keep exploring, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.